Yep.
They're being some people were investigated for viewing posts. 12,000 people arrested by the police in the UK, the same place that just implemented digital ID. I mean, this is an Orwell nightmare coming to life right in front of our face, and no one's flinching. No one in America is freaking out about what's happening in the UK at all. I mean, you get people online that are kind of freaked out by it, but they're way more freaked out by nonsensical things like whether or not what Jimmy Kimmel said in his monologue was offensive.
Yeah.
When Shari Redstone was selling CBS and Paramount to the entertainment studio Skydance, she became more sympathetic to the Trump lawsuit against her. That according to a lengthy expose in the New York Times. Joining us now from upstate New York is the author, Pulitzer Prize winner, James Stewart of the New York Times. And Jim, for people who haven't been breathlessly following it, President Trump filed a $10 billion lawsuit against CBS stemming from the unethical editing of that 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. And Shari Redstone, as you report, wound up thinking this was a good thing in terms of bias. Please explain.
Well, she thought it was a bad thing in terms of the financial implications, but she did say to me something I thought very interesting, which was maybe President Trump is going to accomplish something here that I never managed to do. Because she did believe that there was an imbalance in CBS News coverage, particularly at 60 Minutes, and that its long tradition of being sort of bipartisan and not political, they had strayed from that mission. On the other hand, I did, in doing the reporting, uncover the fact that she only went to CBS. You know, she's a controlling shareholder, but she only went 2 times. And both involved coverage of Israel and her concern that the balance had tipped towards anti-Israel positions.
Right. You report that she was worried about discovery, which is why a lot of these cases get settled, particularly a Scott Pelley interview with President Biden.
Yeah, I found this particularly interesting because legal observers thought that the Trump lawsuit had almost no merit to it. But when you get involved in litigation, anyone who's been in it, I think, will agree, there are so many other things that can emerge through discovery. They would have wide-ranging access to every interview that CBS ever did. And people at CBS told Shari Redstone and her son Tyler that they were particularly troubled by the interview of Biden and the editing of that interview because he had really sort of virtually nodded off. He had to be prodded, he had to be coached. And all of that had been edited out. Now,
so this could be seen. This could be seen if I can jump in.
He did say he seemed tired, but the raw footage might have looked much worse. Now, people at CBS who saw the footage said, "No, there's nothing unusual, just Biden being Biden." But you can imagine that Redstones were troubled that in the hands of Trump lawyers, this could look bad.
It could look bad. It could look like they were covering up for the president and his mental decline. So when critics say that Shari Redstone, whose family made at least $2.5 billion off this sale of Paramount to Skydance, when there was a headline in the Drudge Report, the woman who ruined CBS News, do they have a point?
Well, I feel that's very unfair. First of all, Shari Redstone withdrew from settlement talks. The whole attack on her is that she was selling out CBS News to appease the Trump administration and get approval of the deal. And she withdrew from negotiations. She left it up to the board to handle the negotiations of the lawsuit. She was not involved in that. Another thing she was attacked for was canceling Colbert and what people said was another attempt to appease the Trump administration. Because
and she didn't even know about that, the Late Show. Apparently she wasn't consulted.
In fact, she was upset that nobody had bothered to tell her they were going to do it until Colbert was about to go on TV and announce that it had been done. So the simple facts to me indicate that Shari Redstone had withdrawn from a lot of this. She was not involved. Yes, it was in her interest to settle that suit, and she said she thought it should be settled, but she was not involved in any of the details or the actual decision-making there.
Well, she needed, as you alluded to, approval from the Trump administration to make the sale to Skydance, and got it pretty quickly. A lot of people think, well, the skids were greased for her because it happened so quickly.
Well, there's no question that the appearances there look like, CBS did what it had to do in an attempt to get the deal approved. But again, this was not a situation of Sherry Redstone's making. She had already agreed to sell the company before Trump was reelected. Then he filed the suit against CBS. Then he was elected president. Then the FCC had to sign off on the transfer. In theory, that lawsuit in the White House should have had nothing to do with the FCC decision. But we all know in the real world, it looks highly suspicious that, very soon after that case was settled, the FCC suddenly said, okay, we're fine. We're fine with the transfer. So they all did become entangled. And the appearance made it look like, yes, CBS was bending to the will of Trump to get the deal done.
You've been speaking to Sherry Redstone for a year on the condition that nothing could be published until after the sale was completed. Was that frustrating at times?
Well, I understood that because, if Sherry Redstone, said virtually anything, her enemies, her critics, independent shareholders are going to jump on it, sue her, try to derail the deal. Her goal was to get the deal done. So I understood that. There were times in the course of the year when things cropped up that I thought needed to be disclosed. In particular, she did not tell me this, but I learned from other sources that she had been diagnosed with cancer and had undergone surgery. And that word was starting to get out. And I discussed it with her. And I said, I think I should report that because it's going to get out somewhere anyway. And so I did go ahead and do that. But otherwise, I understood her motives for wanting to hold that back.
I've got about a minute. You say some of the criticism is unfair, and that's fine. But I also have to ask you whether or not the head of the company thought CBS News was biased. That's a pretty strong indictment.
Well, look, my goal in this story was to convey Sherry Redstone's thinking about this, her point of view, because she had never talked about it. And I think you can't really understand what happened without understanding what was going on in her head, the main decision maker. She did believe that bias had crept into CBS News. She was troubled, particularly by its coverage of the Israel-Gaza war, but also the way it dealt with President Trump and with Republican conservative voices that appeared on the network. That was a concern of hers. I am not saying that I necessarily agree with that. I didn't review a lot of this footage. I haven't watched nearly as much CBS News as she has. So I can't say if that is indeed legitimate or not. And I'm not personally criticizing CBS News, but I think it is important for people to understand that Sherry Redstone, the controlling shareholder, did believe there were problems there. She had intervened several times to tell the chief executive that and felt that nothing was really changing.
Great piece of reporting. Jim Stewart, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.